There we go. My name is Kim Richmond. For those of you who don't know me, I saw a lot of familiar faces. For those who signed up, I am the chairperson for the Creation Care Ministry team for the conference, and I am a layperson. I attend Maple Springs United Methodist Church in Winston-Salem, and I'm an earth keeper. And I'm just very glad that you all are here with us this evening to do a little bit of admin here. I mentioned if you would please, as you come in, just make sure your name's in the chat. We'd like to see who all is here with us tonight. We are recording this session and it will be available to watch again if you just find it so interesting, or for those who aren't able to attend this evening, to go ahead and watch it. If you would please, to facilitate a clean recording, please make sure that your microphone is on mute through the whole session, and at the end we will have a question and answer period. But if you want to just type your questions in the chat as we go along, I will try to monitor them. I'm going to play the role of the moderator here tonight. And so one thing that I wanted to mention first off is that the Creation Care Coordinator position that was created, I think, last year and entered on the charge conference reports for each local church was asked to create this position for a layperson. I wanted to mention just really what we were visioning for this position. And so in some respects, you get to be viewed as an extra member of our team, our Creation Care team for the conference, but you're our point of contact really at the local church level. And you will be a connection there, and you will facilitate, hopefully, communications that come from us, where we might want to tell you about an event such as this evening, or a couple that I'll mention at the end of the program. Or you can also flow communication back to us if someone in the church has a question, or if you have something that you're doing that we can help you with. Hopefully they would know to go to you, and you would know how to put them in touch with us. And one thing that would be very helpful is, for example, in 2023, we passed the annual conference passed a petition, a resolution that was calling for each local church to start a Creation Care team in that church. So for example, some people aren't aware that that resolution even passed. That didn't get back out to each one of the churches necessarily. So a communication like that would be really important. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the one who does the work, although of course, that would be great if that is your area of passion. But it's just a position where you let people know what is going on and then flow back to us. So the rest, I think what we'll do here is we will go ahead and begin our program with an opening prayer here. And after we do that, we'll go more into the what I call the meat of the program. So if you would please, to center us here and bow your heads, and let's join in prayer. Creator God, as we gather together this evening for this workshop, we give thanks for the gift of creation. We give thanks for its beauty and the joy the beauty brings us. We give thanks for light that shines in the darkness, for the stars and the sun, for the air we breathe and the plants and the animals that you have created, for earth and water, and for the daily sustenance we draw from them. Inspire us to see you, Creator, through all that you have created, all that you look upon as very good. Guide us in ways to care for creation as you instructed us. Inspire us to be stewards of this abundant life. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So our program is really titled Starting or Expanding a Creation Care Ministry at Your Church. And I will pop a link to the actual resolution that passed at the annual conference in 2023, so that if you haven't seen it, or you would like to make sure that you get it out to the other members in your church, you'll have access to that. And then what I would do is we're going to have 3 speakers tonight. They are all members of our Creation Care Ministry team. And our first speaker is Dawn Lewis. And Dawn is a recent transplant to the Winston-Salem area, so she lives near me and attends Ardmore United Methodist Church. She came to us from Austin, Texas, and so she had quite the shock getting used to the cold weather here recently. But I will drop her bio into the chat so that you can hear more and see more about Dawn as she goes ahead and begins the presentation. So take it away, Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim, and welcome. We are so happy that you're here. It's so wonderful to see your faces and see your names, and we are just delighted. Before I start my presentation, I do just want to preface it with the fact that I may have an uninvited guest. My dog is kind of in this wild mood, and she's been kind of barking off and on, so I apologize in advance. She's kind of a wild Australian Shepherd, but she is part of creation. So there you go. So I apologize in advance for that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of walk you through just the starting out with your green team or your creation care ministry or green shepherds, whatever it is that you want to call it. That as Kim just cited, we are trying to make sure that all churches have one of these, and I'll give you just a little bit of history of how I got involved with that, and hopefully it will help you as you build your program and try to either get it started or expand on it. So I started, as Kim cited, I was in Austin, Texas, and we wanted to start a team there. We kind of had a conversation about it, and the reason why I have these two pictures on here, it's just to show you during that first conversation we had, we talked about how incredible creation was, whether you're looking from the top of a mountain or whether you are really get a close up of what an insect looks like, that there's just so much perfection and beauty in that. And um, I was talking to somebody at my church, and we just felt this calling to do what we could to really protect and preserve this wonderful gift. So we talked about it and we talked about it, and there were two of us, and we said, well, we want to build this team. We want to make sure we actually have an impact. This is our mission. And so we kind of strategized about how we were going to do that, because it's one thing to want to be able to do that, and it's another thing to actually see that it actually comes to fruition. So, Jonathan, can you do the next slide, please? Thank you. So we talked, and what we decided to do was to go into the church and be prepared to let everybody know why we wanted to do this, why we wanted to have a green team, why we wanted to have a creation care ministry. And when we did that, we wanted to make sure that we didn't go in there and say, well, we think this is really important. We really feel like this is our calling. And we want to do this because, as you probably know, when you talk to your leaders at the church, they're looking at the church itself, and they're looking at how it's going to impact everybody in the church and the community. And if it's and there is a lot of wonderful work that's being done in the church. So you have to make sure that you let them know how it can make your church a better place, a more sustainable place, and that it is just one way that we can do God's work. And so the first thing we did is we went to our pastor, because we knew if we wanted to get this started, we sure wanted to make sure we had his support. So we set up a meeting with him. We talked with him. We told him all the reasons why this would be good for our church, for our community, for our God. And luckily enough, he was all on board. And once we got his support, that made it that much easier to go to the leaders of the church. So we went, and the way our church was set up, first we had to get a church council, and then we had to go to the board of trustees. So we sat and we put together, we strategized, we put together our presentation for the church council, and off we went. And they listened to us. They had a few questions, but they supported it. And it was the same kind of thing happened with the Board of Trustees. But we did something a little different with the Board of Trustees. And what we had thought about and one we wanted to make sure that we implemented was that we wanted to start this creation care ministry. We wanted to start this green team, but we know, and you guys, I'm sure also know that volunteers, members come and go, people, and so we wanted to make sure that this was going to be a sustainable part of the church for a long time to come. And one way to do that was to get a member of our team to always be on the Board of Trustees. So when the Board of Trustees met, they would always have that voice as they talked about facilities, as they talked about the grounds. They would have that voice just kind of in their ear, thinking about ways to be more green, to be more sustainable, and to protect and care for creation. So we worked to make sure that we could do that. And again, we managed to do that too. So we had our church council support. Had somebody on the Board of Trustees. We had the pastor support, and we were off to the races, ready to go. But of course, we only had just a few of us. So if you want, and we wanted to expand our team, and we wanted to do it in a way that was not always using the same people that always do so much of the work at the church. As everybody knows, you have that core group of people that are just like the most awesome volunteers, and they do so much in so many different ways. But we wanted to make sure that we had people that were not in that core group. So we would kind of have a different people that would come with different perspectives and would not get burnt out because they were doing everything else. So, is there one more slide, Jonathan? Jonathan?
No, that's the only slides that we've got.
Ooh, I have one more slide that well, okay. Well, you just apologies for this. I'm just gonna have to talk through my one this slide that you guys aren't gonna see. It wasn't that exciting a slide, but I'll just walk you through it really quickly. So these are the things we did to kind of expand our reach and expand our membership in the creation care ministry that we had. We set up a table between services. We had little giveaways at the table where they were like reusable bags or the little net bags you can use to put your produce in. So people were attracted to come to our table, and then we talked to them about our work and about our mission. We went around and talked to all the different Sunday school groups and told them what we were doing and how that we were looking for new members to be part of this effort. And we were sure that there were people within all the Sunday schools that would be great members of our crew. We partner with United Women in Faith, who have their Just Energy for All program and are very committed to this kind of work as well. And so we got some members from them, and then we just kind of share it out with our newsletter and our website, and just made sure that everybody knew that we had a presence there, and we were really involved and integrated in the work that we were wanted to do. And then we had little name tags. You know how you have your name tags at church so people kind of know who you are? And ours were like little special name tags that said Green Team. So people would ask about it and have those kind of conversations. And then one of the things that we also wanted to make sure we did was to integrate the youth in the church and have members from our youth on our green team as well, because they are the future. This impacts them, and their voices definitely deserve to be heard. So we included them, and one of the projects that we did with them was they were going on a mission trip, and they were going to include some creation care work in their mission. And so we had part of our team that didn't go with them both create these special journals for them with all kinds of liturgy and prayers for them to take. And also we help them raise some money so they could go on their trips. So we partner with them in the sense we were supporting them, but they were doing their own thing as a youth group. So, and I know that Jonathan and Brian are going to talk about different ways to get different, to kind of partner and integrate with different ministries within the church. So I don't want to steal any of their thunder. But so that's the basic. This was kind of just an introduction. This is how you get started. This is how you build your team. And I think they're going to go in and just show how you can expand in different ways within the church and outside of the church as well. So I will pass it back to you, Kim.
Great. Thank you so much, Dawn, for getting us all started in the right direction here. And just quickly would like to introduce you all to Reverend Jonathan Brake. And he is actually the founder of our conference level Creation Care Ministry and is now one of the very active leaders on the team. And he will speak to you about how to integrate this with your existing ministries, and I'll drop his bio into the chat. So go for it, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Dawn, for introducing us to the idea of having a green team, a creation care ministry in your church. One of the keys to an effective ministry is not to have a team that just kind of sits off to the side on your own and is not incorporated into the church. We want you to integrate the ministry of creation care and creation justice into the full ministry of the church. There are a lot of ways that that can be done, but I want to touch on just a couple of these areas that every church has. Every church does worship, and every church has some form of education and spiritual formation. Now, you have other things that you do that you're involved in throughout the week, but this will give you a sense of how to integrate the concepts into the ongoing ministries of your church. So in worship, you want to think about, unless you've gone completely 100% to the screens in the front of your sanctuary, you still have a bulletin. And what is that bulletin printed on? It could be printed on recycled paper, and you communicate to the church why you were using recycled paper and making it recyclable. So you can put out bins like this one here, putting your used bulletins into a recycle bin. And this begins to shift the thinking in your congregation's mind about how do we do church and what is important to us as a church. Other ways to incorporate into worship would be in the visuals that people see as they come into the worship space. The top left is just an example of how you might use nature on the screen as you're making that a part of PowerPoint or any kind of projection that you might use in worship. And then there is a display here, just a number of different banners, as you see here across the bottom. These banners are creation focused in some sort, so you can look for those as a possibility. And then you can also bring in seasonal flowers from someone's yard or grow these in the church yard and then use them in your own worship space along with potted plants and the like. Another thing to do in worship is to consider what prayers are you using for people in the worship time. A lot of times we'll use these prayers during a specific season, but what if we sprinkled creation care thoughts and ideas throughout worship throughout the year? So one of the ways that you might do that is this picture on the right side of the screen. This picture was actually sent to me from my cousin. My cousin's family lives in Altadena, California. What you're looking at here is what's left of the car. Their whole house and everything is gone. And they went back to see what they could find and discovered that some of the wildlife, this peacock, as well as others, had come into the space. And so when you're in worship and you're praying about the people who have been affected by something like the fires in LA, don't forget that it's not just humans, but the natural habitat, the animals and so forth could be and need to be a part of our prayers as well. And so this is just a reminder to draw creation back into the prayers as a part of your intercessions for others. Now, when you think about music in worship, there may be some times when you do some creation-focused music. But think about what hymns are in our hymnals or other songbooks that you have in your pews. If you're doing contemporary music, look for those songs that people have fallen in love with that really touch on creation, and sprinkle this throughout the year and make that a part of your ongoing worship. Other things that churches are doing around worship are special services, special times of the year. And so Earth Day is always April 22nd, and the Sunday closest to that has been designated by the United Methodist Church as Festival of God's Creation Sunday. It's always that closest to Earth Day, which happens to be this year on Easter Sunday. So a lot of churches will celebrate a Festival of God's Creation or Earth Day Sunday in the weeks following Easter in the springtime of the year. Then in the fall, there is a season called the Season of Creation. If your church has not celebrated the Season of Creation, it's a great opportunity for your creation care team to bring to attention to your pastor and your worship team that there is this season that begins on September 1st with the World Day of Prayer for all of God's creation. And it ends on October 4th, which is a feast day for St. Francis of Assisi. And so churches will have activities that go on during that season as well as in worship, but you can focus anything during that season from your team to really incorporate with the whole church. And then the other picture here is just a reminder that during the COVID pandemic, many of our churches worship somewhere outside. And so what if you were to take worship, either your Sunday morning worship or special times of the year, and go find a place in a nearby park or on a church member's property or on your church campus or somewhere, and go back into God's creation and worship there. Now, spiritual formation and education is in every church, so you may focus on some opportunities throughout the year, such as small group studies, and there are lots of materials that can be used for that. You can find some of those on the conference website under the Creation Care Ministry. You might even have a presenters series where you invite people to come in and open it up to the community, and they come and they speak on different aspects of God's creation. And continue to bring your people's focus back to some of the things you see here in this word cloud that are locally focused issues on creation care or eco-justice issues that are happening in your own community. Some other things that you might do is do some outdoor activities, meet at a park, go hiking, go tubing down a river. Include with all of these some devotion time where you can gather in that space in God's creation and focus on the love that we have for what God has offered to us to sustain life, and have some responsibility for creation as well. Now, when you think of your youth groups like to be active. You might incorporate some things like a community garden that your youth can help develop, design, plant, take care of, harvest, and take the food to people in the communities. You might encourage your youth to take retreats to more natural settings, maybe some camps that are district or conference camps in the mountains or at the beach or at a lake. And you want to encourage your youth to begin to appreciate and care for creation themselves as a part of our faith development. And so a lot of youth groups will adopt a street or a creek or work with their local river keeper to do some things in creation. For children, some of the options that you might want to consider are, how do you help the children fall in love with God's creation? And this might include things like planting a pollinator garden like these children are doing here on the church property to beautify the church property, but also to support and care for God's creation. And you might find a way to do Vacation Bible School. There are several different VBS curricula that are out there now that are focused on creation care. And so these are just some examples of how you might look at your existing ministries and say, how can creation care and an awareness and an action step of doing something in this ministry be spread through existing ministries in the life of your church? Kim, I'll send it back to you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate you going through all of those and giving everyone the ideas. on ways to just spread this throughout their whole church rather than just making it what is often viewed as a specialty or a boutique type ministry. It really should permeate the entire church. So another way that we're going to hear about that is integrating this into your missions perspective within the church. And to do that, we have Brian Mateer. Brian is actually a member of the conference staff, and he is the director of mission engagement. And he was on our team, and then we became under him and part of his team. So we are intricately interconnected with the mission aspect of creation care. And so he gets to tell you more about that. So take it away, Brian.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, friends. As Kim said, I'm the director of missional engagement for the conference, and that includes creation care and local and international mission, as well as disaster response. And I've certainly been busy with a lot of disaster response lately, but I think what our team has really wanted to focus on with this particular workshop is the integration of creation care into all aspects of the church. It's been mentioned a couple of times already. It reminds me of I started my ministry professional career as a youth leader in the United Methodist Church. And at a training stint that I went to, one of the leaders of that particular training event talked about youth ministry as being the one-eared Mickey Mouse. And if you can imagine the outline of Mickey Mouse, the head being the full body of the church, and then the one ear of Mickey Mouse being kind of connected, a little bit connected, but also outside. I think many of our ministries are like that. And certainly creation care can be guilty of that as well. But really what we want to be is fully integrated with the church in all aspects. So that's not just something that this group does, but it is something that we adopt and that the whole church embodies. So early in my dad was a United Methodist pastor, and I was very interested in scouting and the outdoors. And very early on in my scouting career, I was recognizing ways that the church could be involved in aspects of creation care, but also aspects of mission. I think we often think about mission in terms of God's mission to the world, and the world being people, not necessarily all God's creatures. So one of the things that I think we can think about as creation care green teams or aspects of creation care is what are the ways that we can be God's mission to the world, not just with people. That's certainly important, but also to creation. And often there's overlap. If we're good to God's creation, that also impacts people. Jonathan, if you'll go to the next slide. So what are some of the ways that we can consider in our mission groups, things that we could do that are eco-focused? So it could look like road cleanup. It could look like wetlands cleanup. It could be tree planting or organic gardening. Some people mention about pollinator gardens, rain gardens on our property. So how can we utilize our property, our church property, our house property to welcome God's guests? What other eco-focused ways could mission be integrated? Think about how, if you are on a mission journey, think about some of the ways that maybe you can integrate at least one day or parts of a day that is creation care focused. Oftentimes, if we're thinking about creation care and we think about mission as a way that we're helping people that are of need of something. What are the ways that damage to God's creation? What are the ways that impacts people? So some of the things that have already been mentioned are ways that in which that we can be eco-focused in our mission. And really, Jonathan was talking a lot about the in our spiritual formation aspects of our church. There's so many biblical stories of how we can integrate these messages into our devotions for our eco mission journeys. If you'll go to the next slide, please. Also, we need to be thinking about how our mission journeys, the things that we do in mission, how it impacts the environment. So I'm going to give you some things to think about, some ways that you can green your mission trip is how we like to talk about it. And I'm going to just walk through several aspects of this. And these are some kind of good tips and good practices that you can think about in terms of how to green your mission trip, or really how to green any type of a trip that your church might be taking. So think about your choice of transportation. Are you using more eco-friendly vehicles? Are there ways that you can carpool into less vehicles? Could you consider taking train transportation? Could you rent an electric vehicle or a bus that could be a little bit more economically friendly? One of the most harmful greenhouse gas emission choice of transportation is planes, so airplanes. So when you can, drive to your location when at all possible, and try as little as possible to fly. So what are some ways that we can minimize our greenhouse gas emissions at the places that we're staying on a mission trip? We can set our air conditions with conservation in mind. We can turn off all electric items like lights and TV, lower heat, raise air condition when leaving a room. And these are good practices for our churches as well. Think about how you take the food that you're going, or how you prepare the food. Can we use locally sourced ingredients? When necessary, don't take individually packed snacks or single-use plastic. Are we considering the dishes that we eat on? Instead of using disposable dishes, can we partner with local churches that we're staying at to use plates and silverware, so we're not using styrofoam, hopefully not styrofoam or even paper products. Think about how we're going to prepare food, how we're going to prepare snacks, and what will we do with the leftovers? Can we partner with a local homeless ministry or another type of ministry that could take the things that is not eaten on your trip? A couple of other good practices that we can think about is bringing a reusable water bottle to fill it. I take my reusable water bottle everywhere I go. Do we have straws or reusable straws or silverware that we can take along so we're not using disposable items? And also think about recycling and how we can recycle on our journey so that we're not contributing to additional waste. So remember that the people that we serve are God's creation as well as us surroundings. So not only do we want to serve people, but we also want to serve God's creation. Can you go to the next slide, please, Jonathan? One of the areas that I've been really focused on a lot recently because of my role with Conference Disaster Response is how can disaster response be more eco-friendly or help raise awareness of some of the climate change related issues that we're having. We seem to be we don't seem to be. We're absolutely having more frequent disasters and more intense disasters. And I think we can not look too far from Western North Carolina and the impacts of Hurricane Helene. So these are a few of the things that we've been doing in disaster response to help with some of these disaster related issues. We think about high heat. How can our how can our churches respond to those that are vulnerable to high heat? If you know anything about the health impacts on extreme heat, it's not so much how hot it gets in the day, but it's the how it does not cool at night. That causes real problems with people that are vulnerable. So what can our churches, how can our churches be spaces of mission for our communities? Can we open our buildings to a cooling center? And if we do that, how can we open our buildings in an eco-friendly way? We're getting ready to do a lot of rebuild projects in Western North Carolina as we open our long-term recovery program over the next several weeks and months. So when we go into homes, how can we make not only rebuild, but rebuild them better? What are some things that we can do to help weatherize homes so that it will be eco-friendly, yes, but also be a more comfortable, habitable space for people, as well as save them money in the long run. So some of the things that we're trying to implement are to help with weatherization of homes as we get people back into them. What can we do to help mitigate damage? We saw this a lot in Western North Carolina. How can we do some things before a disaster strikes to help help lessen the impact on homes and structures in our communities? Some of those things could be wetland restoration. This is one of the things that Lake Junaluska is hoping to do, is to restore some of their wetlands after Hurricane Helene. Stream bank stabilization by planting native species along stream beds. It helps slow the intensity of the water, and also how can we modify this stream bank so that it's not so steep and more spread out, so that the flooding waters will spread out instead of go through with so much force. And then the native planting. And then finally, I wanted to mention about the Footprint Project and other solar solutions in disaster response. We were in Poplar, North Carolina, which is all the way up on the border of Tennessee. After Hurricane Helene, we were able to put a solar grid in there that helped power the community. In disaster response, if you are on an early response team, you're supposed to be able to be self-sufficient for up to 3 days of work. So how can solar help us be more self-sufficient in those circumstances? So several of our conferences in the Southeast jurisdiction have solar trailers that they can put up little microgrids to run offices, charge batteries for cell phones, or also for tools. And the Footprint Project is a large organization that is partnering with the United Methodist Committee on Relief, so that there will be a bit of a catalog of resources, solar solutions that can be deployed in disaster situations. So this is further integration of how Creation Care can be integrated within all aspects of mission. So thank you for that, and I will turn it back over to Kim.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And thank you for all your work up in the mountainside. We all wish you well on that. That's in all of our hearts and minds, I believe. So I'm going to just share a few resources with you here, and then we've had 2 questions come up in the chat. If anyone else has any questions as we go through some of the resources and an event here at the end, you can go ahead and enter those, or we'll let you open your microphones if you want to do that here. So resources, just real quick. And someone had asked if we can get you the slides. We will try to make those available somehow, whether they will be on posted on a link or whatever. We will get that to you. If you want to take a picture of this, you can take a picture of it, but we do have a web page on the conference webpage, and you see the address here. Yeah, it's just WNCC-Creation-Care-Ministries. On that page, we have a number of different sub-pages. And one thing is for the Green Church Initiative. The Green Church Initiative right now, the short version of that is it's like a 12-page written idea suggestion toolbox for those who are wanting to try to find things to do in their church in different areas. And it's worship, stewardship, evangelism, discipleship, and mission. And they're under those categories. And if you go into our webpage and look for the Green Church Initiative and click on that, it's got a few, it can be an awards program also. But at this point, it's a toolbox that you can go into and get all kinds of ideas from. Another thing is the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement is a grassroots organization of United Methodists across the country, definitely incorporates some from around the world. People like all of us, some clergy, some laity, who are interested in moving forward the creation care and creation justice. Their webpage has just tons of information and resources on it. So I encourage you to go on there and look and see what you can find. One important area on there that I've used a lot is the legislation that was passed at the 2024 General Conference that's related to creation care and justice is all there. And it is a good way to see what we're being called to do by the whole denomination in the area of creation care. Discipleship resources. They also have a toolkit for how to launch your creation care ministry. And then the UWF, United Women in Faith, they have a climate justice focus, and they are a great resource as well. And then I just want to tell you for the next slide, we do have a few programs coming up. This is a creation care related program. Our team is not hosting it. It is being hosted by Harrison UMC in Pineville, North Carolina, which is near Charlotte. And Nancy Kazaya, who is a member of our conference team, that's her home church, and they are hosting this. There is a link that I will put into the chat so that you can get more information. Go to the registration page for that, but it's on March 1st. It's from 9:30 to 2:30. It costs $25 per person, but it includes lunch, and it will be in addition to a wonderful program with a speaker who leads the workshops and lots of time to converse. It will be a great networking opportunity. So if you're new to the creation care arena and you would like to come and get to know others who are doing this work, get some tips, I highly recommend this workshop. So, and Nancy, I have her email address on there. You can just hit her with any questions, but I will also include that information. So I'll put that into the chat as soon as we move on. So we've got time to do some Q&A. And Jonathan, I thought maybe these might be, or this is kind of linked, the two questions that we have in the chat. If you would, first, I don't know if you saw it, is what does the creation care team really do? Since you founded, you founded at the conference level, but you also have done this at the local church level. What does the creation care team really do? And please give some goals and examples. And then the same person related to that would like some examples for maybe an older congregation of fewer members who can't be quite as actively engaged. So would you mind taking that one?
Sure. Thanks for the questions. And a great question for any church that's trying to begin a creation care ministry, or even if you've got a team, but you're trying to figure out what do we do now that we've formed a team. The creation care ministry, the green team, whatever term you want to use in your congregation, is a group of people who really have a heart and a desire to help your congregation and the members there reconnect who we are, our faith, our theology, to the bigger picture of all that God has done and created. We live in a culture, in a society where so often we separate ourselves out from the natural world, from the created world in which God placed us to be a benefit and to bless us in so many ways. And yet we miss that because we've put ourselves in climate controlled homes. We might walk outside. If we don't have a garage, we walk outside and get in a car and we set the climate control in the car and we drive to where we want to go, and we get out and we walk into a climate controlled building, whether you're shopping or working or going to any other place. And we really shut out the world that God designed and created for us. In so doing, we end up belittling our understanding of who God is and how we are in relationship with God and all of creation. And so a creation care team, first and foremost, is designed to help a congregation begin to rediscover what it means for us to be children of God who are given the responsibility of being stewards of what belongs to God. All of creation belongs to God. And yet many times as the church, we are completely unaware of the ways that humanity is causing damage to not just the created world, but to humans through the work that we do and the things that we do to our natural environment. And so the creation care ministry is not, as some people have sometimes said, we're not trying to help people worship creation. That's not our goal at all. Our goal is to worship the Creator in the fullness of what it means to love God and love neighbor. And so we broaden that understanding of who God is as the one who designed creation, cares for creation, loves creation. And John 3:16 says that God loved the world so much that God sent his son. And so that was not just for humanity. And many times we have a very narrow view of God's desires. So what we want to do is help the congregation discover ways that we live into the broader picture of how we're a part of God's bigger plan, and our responsibilities are beyond the walls of our church building. So that's kind of in a nutshell as to what a creation care ministry can do. So bringing awareness, drawing attention to some of the issues that are caring for God's creation, and that can be done through some of the examples I gave you, but we can also work, as Dawn was saying, with the trustees of the church to find out how can we be better caretakers of creation through the decisions we make on how we care for church property and what we can do there. Missions, we mentioned children and youth ministries, homeless ministries, those kind of things. There's a creation care side of that. There's a creation connection. And so a creation care team is involved there. We do have a lot of older churches, older congregations, as far as the members are maybe not as physically capable of getting out and wandering through a stream to clean up the waterways, or going up into the mountains with one of Brian's teams to do some hands-on work. But the question is, what can they do? Older congregations can do a number of things. I know of congregations that have partnered with local schools, and they have worked with the congregations or with the children in classrooms to help teach children how to do gardening. Maybe you've got church members who have enjoyed doing some of that in the past. Maybe they had a vegetable garden or flower gardening, and they can share that with local organizations. Other churches have made their property available for workshops and have invited people to come in and talk about some of these issues and become hosts to a community-wide event. I've seen older churches of older members partner with other churches in your community. Maybe find another United Methodist church who is interested in doing this kind of ministry and be supportive and encouraging with them. And so those are some of the things you can do in addition to recycling at the church, making adjustments to heating and air when you're not there. Just some little things that you can do there in the congregation. But don't give up just because you're an older congregation. One of the things that we do know, older generations are very concerned about the the future of life on this planet for their grandchildren and maybe even great grandchildren. And so one of the things a congregation of older members may want to do is invite some of those children or grandchildren in to talk with you about what is their concern, what are they worried about, what are they dealing with, what are they learning, and let them teach you about the issues they're facing. A lot of times we talk about what's going to happen to our natural environment, the air, the water, the growing capability by 2050. And a lot of our older congregations, the members are thinking, well, I won't be here by 2050, but the ones that I love are going to be here. And it's a great opportunity for the younger folks to find out that you care enough to listen to their voices. So find some ways to connect with those around you and be a participant in that way.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, you can take your mute off and follow up with that. In the meantime, we do have another question. Says the UWF have advocacy actions as part of climate responses. Is this an area Creation Care will do as well? Well, I'll say one little thing on that, and then I'll let any of the other presenters who want to offer something along those lines. But the short answer to that is yes. Definitely advocacy is an important part of Creation Care, creation justice that's related to that. Presently, there are actions in that area that are offered through our Board of Church and Society. And so you can go onto the Church and Society website and go to advocacy and see what some of those are. And some of those are very simple. All you have to do is enter some of your information and they automatically go to your I want to say legal representatives. That's not what I mean. To your legislature. And that is one very simple but very effective way to get engaged and to get started in the advocacy. I also know, and Nancy, you might remind me, Nancy Kazaya, who is a member of our team, she's on here, and I know that there was one of the churches in the Metro District who did some type of an advocacy mailing campaign. Would you want to say something about that? You know what I'm thinking about, the Bread for Life or...
Right, and that's Brenda Massara. She's also on the phone. On the thing. But anyways, they had letters already typed up and all you had to do was sign it. And then they delivered it to the different people that they needed to deliver it to. So that they would have this stack of letters saying, that we are asking you to think about this when it comes up for vote, So there are a lot of ways you can do that.
Excellent, thank you. And I know also through the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement, they have some advocacy opportunities that come out. They have a monthly newsletter that often includes advocacy work on there. And then don't ever forget that advocacy within your local community is very important too. I mean, you can come up, I am active with Forsyth Audubon, which is my local chapter of Audubon, and we do advocacy work here where we speak and go and speak at city council or find different things to do lights out measures for bird safety, which is of course Creation Care related. And we also do things on native plants initiatives and have passed some good work with the sustainability director at the local level for the city of Winston-Salem, who has done work. We've worked with city parks, with county parks. And so there are a lot of opportunities. And if you have more questions on how those can go, once again, creationcarewncc@gmail.com is the general overall email, or you can go on our webpage and we have contacts for each of the districts, and they also have email addresses. So did anyone else want to offer anything else along those lines for that question?
I'm just going to say that we partner a lot with the North Carolina Conference Creation Care team as well. And because they have Raleigh, they are very focused on advocacy and share with us from time to time what are some of the state level issues and concerns that the church voice needs to be heard. And so if you get onto our mailing list, Kim will send out information from time to time when we have an issue where you can reach out to your representatives about something that's North Carolina focused that you'd like to advocate for on the political side as well.
Right. Thank you for adding that in there. Any other questions? I think we've covered everything that has come in from the chat at this point. If anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, please feel free to do so. And then I'll ask any of our three presenters. We've got 3 minutes left. Does anyone want to just offer one final word or think of something else that you wanted to add in to share with our group here tonight?
I'll add one thing. We as the Creation Care Ministry of your conference have put together some plans for the year. And one of those is to emphasize local churches having what's called an energy assessment of your property. And we can work with you to bring someone in who will walk through the church property, the church building, and look for ways that you can improve energy efficiencies. In most cases, we can expect somewhere close to 30% financial savings when you enact those actions in your church building. And then you can turn that money back around into missions or other parts of your church ministry. And so that's one of the things we're trying to work on.
Great.
I'd just like to add too that we've shared a lot of ideas and lots of things that you can get started with and integrate, ways you can integrate within the church. Just get started. Just get started with one thing. Invite some of your church friends to do the same. Just taking that first initial step. I don't want you to get overwhelmed with what you've heard, but just get going. Just get going. I encourage you to do that.
Right. And one more thing, and that is, we are here for you if you are, need some help or support in building your Creation Care team. And we have resources, we can provide insights, and we're more than happy to reach out and do whatever you can so you will be successful, which I'm sure you will.
That is absolutely right. And I appreciate those final comments. And I will just say that we are presently working on coming up with an online program, whether it's going to be a half hour once a month or what, maybe an hour once a month. We haven't developed it yet, but stay tuned. It's going to be to get Green Team leaders together to talk and share ideas and ask questions. It will be very informally based. And we'll let you know when that comes out, but we're hoping to do that here within the next month or so. So we really appreciate your time here once again. And, just enjoy the rest of your evening. Hope you have a good week and take care.